What's up, people? Gonna try really hard to keep this on topic. First off, I'm just letting you guys know that this is likely gonna go kind of all over the place, but I'm really wound tight by the world around me, and that includes many of the folks I know and love that have been doing that. I will, however, try to keep it related here. Name another profession that is scrutinized by the American people more than law enforcement. It's really fascinating to me. Honestly, if I'm being really honest with you guys, it's actually frustrating to me, but I'm gonna digress on that. Imagine for a moment walking up to a career military man who is securing the perimeter and pulling out your camera phone and filming him as he removes a potential threat from the perimeter. The entire time he's doing that, you're yelling how he's doing it wrong. Imagine for a moment walking into up to a firefighter and telling them how they should better run their hoses and how they should put water on a house fire in a neighborhood. How about a doctor or an EMT or a judge or a crane operator or a cell phone tower builder or a heavy machine operator or literally anything that requires knowledge, training, and experience to accomplish well? Imagine if we could go on and on and on with this. Guys, the work of the law enforcement officer is easily misunderstood from the outside. The work is nearly impossible to grasp without proper training and experience, which is a major issue I have with folks diagnosing, judging, creating civilian oversight boards, demanding body cameras, or injecting their opinions on law enforcement encounters, as well as videos of those encounters and incidents. People have no idea how difficult and strict the profession is from the inside out. They have no idea how any of it actually works. And here's the thing, everyone thinks their department, the department I live in, they must be the lax one. They have low standards, they have low morals. No, 99.9% of the time, that's just not the case. There may be a few douchebags here and there, and that's the truth. There may be a few douchebags, but it's literally less than almost all the other professions because of the standards employed from the inside out, not the outside in. No one on God's green earth hates bad cops more than good cops. So please, for the love of God, people, stop with your unfounded virtue signaling and your assessments of what's needed for law enforcement reforms. People have no clue. Law enforcement officers are screened extensively, and I believe, honestly, called to that profession because it takes a very, very different personality to handle the job. It takes sometimes the necessity of tactics that might appear shocking. It requires possibly violence sometimes. Sometimes it creates you have to have great care. Sometimes you have to have great understanding, empathy, and so forth and so on. The process for entrance to try to be a police officer is arduous and lengthy in most departments. Where I was and when I was a police officer, there were months worth of testing in academics, in psychology, in physical tasks, along with a background investigation. Holy crap, that was so thorough that you could qualify for a top secret freaking clearance. Once that selection process was completed, if you were selected, you could begin the training process to possibly become a cop, if you could pass the training over the next 6 months. Law, procedure, physical fitness, weapons, hand-to-hand, cuffing, reality-based scenario training, first aid, basic life-saving, emotional control, continued psychological profiling, tactical driving, active shooter, and more and more and more. The training was close to 800 hours of classroom and practical training just to obtain the basic police officer certification. And then after that, the officer has to pass field training. That's a selection process where you'd ride with a veteran police officer for 2 to 3 months. If you passed all of that, you could start being a rookie cop and actually gaining experience. And now we also have the ability to gain additional training through advanced courses if we desire to do so, desire to specialize in certain things. Or those courses recommended by supervisors, along with mandatory continued education. You have to do it all the time. Special classes. Even with all of those things in place, scenes, incidents, and your perspective must be dynamic and able to flow from one instant to another. There is no typical. There is no typical in anything in law enforcement. Pieces of a job here and there may be similar, but it's never quite the same. It always has the potential to change. And as soon as an officer begins operating in a way that is complacent towards that dynamic nature, their life becomes at risk. Now, here's the thing. Different departments do things different ways. And this means that what one department may allow, another department may not, by policy. You stack into that the fact that each state has slightly different laws, and every city or county may have different ordinances. And then all of those things are underneath federal statutes. And now we have a wide range of what is and isn't appropriate in a given incident. Now, there are some universal standards, but other than those things, what applies in one incident may not be the same, especially if you're looking at an incidents that are similar in different states or different departments. The things you see on TV shows and the movies, they're bullshit. The short clip that you see of an incident is literally never, not even once, the whole story, or even the whole truth when you first see it. Sometimes what you see is a complete mislead from what actually happened, or possibly just a totally fabricated narrative altogether. Yet in today's modern age of instant everything, that partial truth is slammed into your face at full speed. And then it's spun up whichever way will get folks most riled up. Riled up sells readership and viewership. It's therefore no longer about telling you the truth of what's happening here, but rather about hooking you and keeping you on that freaking hook as long as possible. That's what's being done by the media. The weird thing is about partial truth is this: it's still a whole lie. I suppose that's not really weird, but it is a very, very uncommon realization apparently in today's world. The whole truth still matters to some of us. The real facts still matter to some of us. It matters because we understand that without that complete realization of fact and truth, that real justice that everyone's crying out for can't be had. A single fact in the recent Arbery case from this past Friday, and it totally changed my analysis of that incident. One fact. And here's the tragedy. In today's society, truth doesn't matter. People have already had their knee-jerk reactions to the videos or the media's spin of the scene that they have none of that above training that I said to identify. They're so easy to manipulate because they're emotive and they already have a disposition and a bias picked out. Poke at that thing and voila. So you see, now the truth doesn't matter anymore because people no longer want the truth. They want to be right. They want to feel justified in their beliefs about their perceptions of the clips or the photos or the narrative or whatever. This is evident right now everywhere I look. It's by the things I see and hear, many times by the people I love and care for. It's hard. I hear this. How can you watch that and not feel? I've seen all the proof I need. You were just defending the cops, Jonathan. That's excessive force no matter what. He's just an old man. He didn't deserve that. See, I told you they were dirty cops. Racist asshole. And on and on and on. These phrases and thoughts and beliefs go round and round through social media and the regular media, mainstream media, by those who many times haven't had a single day of experience on that job, or even a citizens police academy, or even a ride-along. Heck, in many cases, those talking the loudest can't even handle somebody disagreeing with them or their point of view without unfriending, without going on a full defensive or rationalizing the person who disagreed with them. And now we hear the outcries of the public for the police to defund or to disband law enforcement, or for there to be massive reforms because they don't like the way something was handled, and yet they don't know how it should be handled. You know, short of what their dad, who was a cop, or their husband's friend says, or their dad's friend's son said in a text message when they asked about something twice removed. The idea of this isn't rooted in anything other than fear and a desire to be proven correct. Imagine what the people who've had their lives saved or changed for the better, encompassing all races, think of the defund or disband or massive reform of law enforcement. Think about what they think of that sentiment. What about those who don't share the people who have a fixed-minded emotional fear loop going on? The demands and hashtag movements are often based on those knee-jerk narratives by people whose emotions and consciences were shocked, but are completely devoid of fact and truth. They're often pushed by people who have little or no experience with police. Sometimes literally nothing other than what they've seen on a TV show or have been told. Hashtag Black Lives Matter. Of course they do. So do brown lives. So do white lives. Red and yellow, black and white, they are precious in his sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world. You've heard that, man. We sung it in Sunday school. Yes, Jonathan. But if a house is on fire, you don't put water on all the houses. That's the latest buzz. Have you guys heard that one? The latest buzzworthy talking point, right? The irony of it is mind-boggling to me because I've seen house fires in subdivisions and I've watched fire services work. So now these very people who, again, have no knowledge, training, or experience are now also expert firefighters. They are experts on law enforcement tactics. They are experts on racism in America, as well as racism in police interactions and all other police interactions. Honestly, these same folks were likely the folks who were also recently experts in virology, medicine, emergency care, and how much, you get it. If I were to guess, those are the same people. Let's use the house fire example though. If you see only one house on fire right now in America, you aren't looking at the other houses. There's a lot of fires. And there's a good likelihood that you are stuck in an emotional-based fear loop. Do you know that the folks who know how to break that fear loop here in the United States better than just about any other group of people? It's the majority of law enforcement. They know how to do that. We're trained for it. Now we're back to that desire to be right over the truth. If we can stop trying to be right and counterpointing and start listening, we can begin to break the emotional fear loop. Fear will absolutely control you if you allow it to do so. It will put you in a fixed mindset and keep you right there. It'll keep you there permanently if you allow it to do so. But you have to allow it to do so. The issue most people have with breaking the fear loop is the necessity to do a really difficult thing, and it's to look within themselves. Within that facing of fear, we must let go of the stronghold beliefs that were passed to us from the people, the world, the circumstances that are around us, and look to the truth as our new measure, even if that means it challenges our established perspective and beliefs. The fixed-minded emotional fear loops are the things that create all sorts of flawed and fixed mindsets, beliefs, and structures. Racism, police brutality as an epidemic. One color, human or another, is inherently more dangerous. An accent is a correlate to intelligence. All people are inherently dangerous. We go on and on with that. Those are exactly what I would call fixed-minded emotional fear loops. And unless we deconstruct the structures within us that are holding them together, they will always exist in our minds and therefore in society, and then they will be passed on to everyone that we hold influence over. Now hear this carefully. Those things that we talked about, they do exist. However, each one of us have the power to eradicate those things within us. And that's the first step. The first step is acknowledging that we are afraid. Whether that fear is brought on by a generational teaching, my mom told me, a personal experience, this happened to me, or something else. How we begin to face the fear and change is step one. Is the fear warranted or is it not? That's a matter that's debatable only if we have decided to be growth-minded in our interactions with ourselves and with others. What is my personal experience? Is the fear I have supported by fact and truth? Where did I find that fact and truth? Because that matters. Did I create that experience by living through the paradigm of a fear loop? Did I create it? Did I make my own fear come true by behaving in a way that was a conditioned response to unwarranted fear? My oldest daughter didn't want to take the dogs out in the dark one night. Threw a fit. I asked her, what's there to be afraid of? And she answered me and she said, I don't know. The dark is scary. How do you know what's in the dark? I said, well, by understanding the relationship of the truth in the dark. See, we live on 11 acres. You guys see it out here. We're surrounded by woods. And I asked her, what's the truth about this property that you should fear? And she said, well, there may be coyotes or snakes or other animals out there. I said, yeah, that's true. There may be. And then I said, do these animals want anything to do with you? And she said, well, no, they all run from people. I said, exactly. See, I went on to explain to her that only in extremely obscure circumstances will any of those animals interact with humans at all. Now, have there been animals that have attacked people for no apparent reason? Yeah, there have. But we don't live our lives afraid of the 0.001%. Instead, we train our body, we train our soul, we train our spirit for that potential interaction, and then we enjoy life with the interactions of the rest. If we begin believing fear not based in truth, then we will begin to find that fear all around us. The limb falling in the woods becomes an animal hunting us. The unknown sound is an approaching predator, and we will begin to hyper-focus on those things over and over again. And when we do hear about someone, somewhere, somehow, who had an interaction with a fear that was similar to ours, we will then begin to solidify and justify that fear as truth in our own world. And then we'll try to pull other people in and convince them of our truth because we don't want to be alone. It's a fixed mindset, emotional fear loop. Fight that loop. Fight it by choosing to leave that fear for a better way. Face it, but don't just face it alone. Face it with truth, with facts, absent of emotion. Move forward. What is your fear? What is your personal experience with that fear? What's the thing you keep telling yourself? Has any of that fear been brought on by you? How have you interacted with that fear? That one's hard. Seek the truth. Guys, I was shot and nearly killed by an unarmed black female. How is that possible? It's a story for another time. However, listen, I'm not afraid of other females. I'm not afraid of other black females. I'm not afraid because I understand my interaction with that fear and the truth. Fear and emotions are a guide to determining truth, but they don't have to be the reality of my every interaction. Love people, hate evil, seek truth. Until next time.